Morning, I'm Inah Seo. Currently, I'm working in the Deep Sea and Seabed Mineral Resources Research Center, but my another research field is Paleoceanographic studies in the tropical Pacific, especially in the Western Pacific Pool area. So I will introduce my research field briefly. So I think you all are aware about recent climate changes as like this. The glacier retreat and global warming can be easily seen in these three pictures. This is actually the Alpine Glacier. But we don't know about our future and the climate changes because we don't know about its critical factor, or it will be permanent or temporary changes. We don't know about much. So past is the key of the future, so we need to look back to predict the future climate changes. So the paleoceanography is a science that studies the Paleocean, the ancient ocean, using climate proxies. The climate proxies is defined as preserved physical characteristics of the past. For example, the oceanographer just bring the thermometer or CTD to the ocean and just measure the temperature of the ocean and the salinity, something else. But we cannot measure the SST or salinity in the past ocean. So we use indirect methods like the recorded SST in the pelagic organisms, and I just measure their compositions and just indirectly recalculate the temperature or salinity in the Paleocean. So this is what I do. So pelagic deep sea sediment comprises like three different components, like detrital component, oxygenic component, and biogenic component. Which each of them represent atmospheric processes in the past and ocean dynamics and the factors affecting the metabolism of the pelagic organisms. So I use the three different components. So my research area is on the Western Pacific Pool, which is the buoyant warm water body at the West Pacific Ocean, and their annual sea surface temperature is above 28 degrees Celsius. And it is regarded as a very important region because it is the largest source of heat and moisture, which is supplied to the entire global ocean. So Pacific climate is often depicted as a present ocean condition of the tropical Pacific. So, for example, the last glacial period is often characterized by the decreased SST gradient between the East and West Pacific. So, because the SST gradient, East-West gradient was smaller than the present condition, it is often described as El Niño-like condition in the last glacial period. But another evidence tells different story. For example, the faunal assemblage of pelagic foraminifera is very similar to the La Nina years assemblage in the Eastern tropical Pacific. So it's kind of the upwelling in the Eastern Pacific cold tongue was very strong in the Algean period. So this difference indicates the forcing and seismic mechanism in the geological past was possibly very different from those of the present. So it is needed to look back and supplement it with other evidences other than SST data to interpret the climate condition of the tropical Pacific in the past. So another very important climatic condition of the tropical Pacific is the intertropical convergence zone, the ITCZ. The ITCZ is located to the north of the equator and characterized by the maximum precipitation, and it is coupled to the NECC system. So the paleo position of the NECC and ITCZ can be traced by the dust provenance because it acts as a natural barrier of the atmospheric dust. So northern hemisphere originated dust is only deposited in the northern hemisphere and only north to the ITCZ, and the southern hemisphere originated dust is only deposited in the south of the ITCZ. So it can be traced by the dust geochemistry. So there are many drilling sites by ODP project, but there are not many drilled sites in the central tropical Pacific and the deep sea, actually more than deeper than 400-meter water depths, because it is not easy to acquire the sedimentary record, and the high-resolution sedimentary record is not available in that site. So we have many cores in the tropical Pacific, but I used 2 sites because the sedimentary, the elevated topography allows the more high resolution record because the presence of the carbonate sediment. So 2 sites are Philippine Sea, actually the Paleoceanographic Ridge, and another side is Magellan Rise, and they are located in the northern margin of the Western Pacific One Pole and the eastern margin of the Western Pacific One Pole. So first, I used the sediment core in the Philippine Sea, and I grouped the Chinese desert into 3 different regions, like Tarim Basin, it is called Central Asian Desert, and the East Asian Desert, and Northern Chinese Desert. So they have different geochemical signatures, so they can be grouped into 3 regions. So to reconstruct the atmospheric circulation in the past, I just analyzed the sedimentary record in the Philippine Sea. So it is known that the major dust transport mechanism in the East Asian Marginal Sea is East Asian winter monsoon. So EAD dust is known to be EAD dust has been known as a major dust supplying region because the aerosol trapped during the dust spring season is very similar to EAD dust. But in the sedimentary record, CA dust, the composition of sediment just nearby basins is very similar to CAD dust. So this kind of difference indicates that because the sedimentary record is kind of year-round averaged sedimentary record, so maybe the background transport during the other than spring season is dominated by the Tarim Basin, like CAD dust. Because the Tarim Basin is located in the very elevated region, so its sediment can be easily trapped by prevailing westerlies and transported to the remote Pacific area. So maybe it emphasized that the year-round background transport of CAD dust to the Pacific is very important. And I studied the climatic changes in the central tropical Pacific across the mid-Pleistocene transition. It is the kind of transitional period from the 41 kiloyear world to 100 kiloyear world in the glacial interglacial climatic cycle. So the study site is located in the eastern margin of the Western Pacific One Pole and is also on the ITCZ in the present condition. So it is dominated by it is under the influence of the NECC, so the nutrient level is very low, and the oligotropy condition is dominate in this region. So before the MPT, the southern hemisphere originated dust is supplied to the study site like this, but after this transition, the northern hemisphere dust has been supplied to the study site. So it indicates the ITCZ was located to the north of the study site, then it moved southward after the transition, and the northern hemisphere dust has been supplied. And the Delo-18 of planktic foraminifera has been decreased after this transition. So it indicates the surface ocean condition has been more warm, has been changed from the to the warmer and fresher condition after this transition. And the biological production has been decreased after this transition. So all of this evidence indicate the ITCG has been pushed southward onto the study site, and the ITCG and NECC condition coupled system generates the nutrient depleted oligotropy condition of the study site as today. So, because south of the ITCZ has been supplied by equatorial boiling, so nutrients are available in the south of the ITCZ. So this kind of environment has been dominated before the MPT, and after the MPT, the ITCZ has been located from, at the study site. So it is linked to the global climate changes after the MPT. The MPT, the transition from 41 kiloyear cycle to 100 kiloyear cycle is often attributed to the advance of northern hemisphere glaciers. So it might be resulted from these kind of changes. So northern hemisphere has more relatively cooled than the southern hemisphere, so atmospheric circulation has became more strong. So ITCC has been pushed southward after the MPT. So similar result has been occurred during the last glaciation. So I picked 3 different planktic foraminifera species, which dwells in the mixed layer and upper thermocline and lower thermocline. So I analyzed the MGCA temperature and Delo-18 of them. So it is seen that the upper and the temperature difference between upper mixed layer and upper thermocline has been decreased during the last glacier period. So it indicates that there has been an enhanced upper ocean mixing, and the warming of the P. obliquata, the upper thermocline species, dwelling temperature has been increased. And the faunal assemblages of plankton foraminifera tells similar story. In the present condition, it is dominated by the large tropical species in the study site, but during the last glacier period, the geolubescence amongst planktic foraminifera species has been significantly increased during this period. So the geolubescence is very rare tropical species, but it only occurs in the subtropical Pacific, and it is characterized by the very strong northeast trade wind and very strong upper ocean mixing. So maybe this condition, the northern part of the study site has been just pushed southward to the study site during the last glacier period. So it also indicates that the northern hemisphere has been more cooled than the southern hemisphere during the last deglacial period. So you can see that this brief cooling event relative northern hemisphere cooling event relative to the southern hemisphere. So it indicates the north-east trade has been more strengthened than the south-east trade. So ITCZ has been pushed southward during the deglacial period, and during the Holocene, it just moves, rebounded to the present condition. So I just briefly summarize my research topics and indicate the tropical Pacific is strongly influenced by ITCZ, as well as not only warm pool and cold tongue interactions. So tropical Pacific has responded to the high latitude forcing via atmospheric processes. Thank you.
Thank you.